Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is the Mercury Day Jupiter hour. And the ascendant is ruled by Jupiter, 19 degrees Sagittarius, with Jupiter on the descendant. The midheaven is right on Ketu, which is ruled by Venus. And for some reason, I thought to talk about Eris in Eris today, or Eris. We know Eris is associated with, LGBTQ, but is also associated with the Ubermench project, trying to create a superhuman, which sounds very fun and robotic, but essentially it is torturing people to death. And those that somehow manage not to die, they are our leaders, our influencers, business people, and anybody that wants to have an income is subjected to comply with that. And if you're the type of person that doesn't comply with that, you want to have business, then you're subjected to torture, which is what I've been going through. And so let's talk about Eris, because Eris is the marginalized, and she thrives on chaos because she hasn't been invited to the party. But there's something that I haven't seen being addressed around Eris. The story of Eris, she's sister of Mars. She gets mad that she's not included. So she throws in a chaos. And what happens in chaos? Chaos, you have to understand that chaos, it has thresholds and it has strange attractors. And if you have, let's say, relationship between two people, okay? One person will play the Eris part, and then there would be threshold, and there will be switching. If you know, I think the time where people talked about the narcissist and the borderline relations, that's very much what they talked about. In a society, it usually plays a part where the Eris throws chaos, and as a part of this threshold, somebody else is marginalized. And then what happens? They throw chaos, and then somebody else is marginalized. And so essentially Eris in Eris tells us that everybody is marginalized in the, or not included in the Eris part. Now, depending on what's in there, what rulers of what houses in there, it may be one or more areas in your life. Okay, I have natally, I have Eris in the second house, so that would be income. That would be of the way I value, myself. That would be, and the ruler of the 7th and 4th, so that would be housing, and that would be upbringing, and that would be partnership or relationships. So whenever I want to make money or be housed somewhere, it creates problems where I feel marginalized. One of my parents has it in the 4th house, with ruler in the 11th, and those are places where they have been disincluded. Okay, my Navamsha has it in, tropically, the 9th house. Okay, so when it comes to my worldview, my religion, and the Mars in the 12th house. So this is where you would go, let's say if you have a mental crisis, or hospital, or jail. Okay, in a way. I was disincluded from jail once. I was homeless in the Netherlands, and there was the 3rd time where I was driving black in the train, and the woman that was supposed to arrest me, she said, no, now you will sit next to the door all the ride, and then you go down the next station. So she preferred to humiliate me than to arrest me. But this was very literally, I was disincluded from jail. So and also from shelter, because I made problems. I did not accept their ways, okay? For people, they were not helping people to get out of homelessness. And so they didn't like it, that I was making revolution everywhere I go. So for you, that might be any area of your life, and it might mean that the people that associated with this area of your life, okay, partner, parent, boss, or guru, teacher, people from abroad, okay, that they might be playing a part in that. And the thing is that it's the outer planets. Eris is outer planet, more so than asteroid. You're not really conscious of what's playing out. Okay, when you marginalize another, you're not really conscious. For example, when I was before the Me Too era, the person that humiliated me, I was not conscious about this because mostly it happened when I'm not around. One time it happened when I was around. I said, okay, I don't want to be there. And then only after I went, I began to speak compulsively because the threshold of silence was crossed. And then he was marginalized because I didn't know that he was intelligence. He was MK Ultra. I knew something about cult. I exposed for the cult, but I did not connect between that and the Masons. And even when I got something to do with the Masons, I was like, is this real? Like, what is this correct information is this channeling? Is this correct? Like, I didn't know. And I didn't know what it means. And so this is how this threshold is working. If somebody is being marginalized, like they marginalized the wrong person, that was me. I went out of the situation. I didn't even know I was marginalized because it was behind my back. And so much so that one person told me that they are angry at me because every time my name is mentioned, they get a trigger. And I was like, this is so simple. Don't mention my don't talk about me behind my back. You know? For me, it was my housing, my income, my survival, my this, whatever. You just don't talk about me without my... Like, this is so simple for you to get out of the situation, right? So, this is how the Eris factor operates. And people tend to throw the chaos at one another. And they do so very likely unconsciously, especially at the time where Eris is squaring Pluto. So Pluto is about secrecy, but it's also about exposure. And Pluto works to exposure, but then the exposure, it marginalized someone, but then if you didn't expose, then you would die for many people, okay, with the ailments. Or you would be outcast and so on. I even noticed when I went to a psychologist who also marginalized me, okay, he made of me, like, tried to make of me MK Ultra, and because I made very strong emphasis on will and consent, and I did not let him play with my self-value, so much so that I had to expose him. And I had to expose him. It was around housing because he already hurt my housing and ability of income and so on. And I had, it was after 7th October, I said, well, no, he lives in, look at the area where he lives. It's Kibbutz Dvir, Yishuv Dvir, okay? No missiles, no invasion, no nothing. That means that all the people that were the traitors that planned the 7th October, that betrayed, and then they make it look like it's Israel versus not, it's infiltration of Israel, they live in such areas. Okay? Look at the areas that are not being bombed, at the areas, remember the Maui and was it Whoopi Goldberg's house that was standing in the entire land was burned, but one house that's standing was Whoopi Goldberg. It's not miracle. And so this is what happens where for the marginalized, okay, you put a person so much so, you marginalize them so much so that it hurts their housing. Now they have to expose you and the way you live. But the way you live is not you, it's all the people that live there. Also planned for 7th October. Why did they plan? Because they very likely grew into MK Ultra and grew into very likely death camps. Okay, but you don't see it because you would see in those villages, usually you would have nice lands and even if not giant houses, you know, kind of fair houses, kind of like the suburb. So nobody would see on them for the torture that they're going through, and they're going to, okay? And that is how the Eris factor operates. If you just leave it that this is the LGBTQ, you're missing the point. LGBTQ is basically the two-spirit, the shamans, the healers that were tortured, and instead of healing humanity, in order to control humanity, they cloned and they tortured the two spirits, okay? So this is how the card of the marginalized is being passed in a chaotic way, and the minute Eris throws the chaos, she's marginalizing others. Remember that Eris also did not mind that people rape people. This is bringing her very difficult karma, because if you were okay with rape, then Beta per se is right next to you, like right up next, and that's another form of what marginalization, because a person is not included in their own soul. But Eris was also, in our society, in our days, he was also raped, okay? So this is important discussion to have, because I see when Eris is mentioned, she's either hardly mentioned or she's mentioned as the story of the one person who is marginalized, and there's no continuation to this timeline. But we had this year eclipse that with Ra on Eris. So we see Eris differently. Of course, it is about being inclusive, but it's also about a certain form of chaotic, because Eris is associated, she's chaos goddess. We need to understand how chaos operates, and this means that we have threshold, and then somebody else is marginalized, threshold, somebody else is marginalized, and so on and so forth. If we go down to the Sedna story, we tackled very likely nearly all of it, because we tackled children to have childhood and not to have forced marriage. If we tackled this, we tackled most of the psychosis in society, heart ailment, nervous system ailments, all the elements of oppression, okay? Immune system ailments, child labor, okay? So people that have no childhood, later they can perpetrate incest, in various ways, okay? Incest is not just like the form of like sleeping with another. Incest is also where you have, let's say, younger friend, but they feel like they're your parent, okay? I had this because my childhood was fractured, and people tried to communicate with me, but they had to play a little bit of not parental authoritarian role, but they had to be sometimes the grown adult, because I could not participate. It was the developmental stage that was not completed, and you cannot suddenly make it disappear. So this is all the Eris story, and we must understand that, because if people are still continuing in the thought that the marginalized is who they think the marginalized is, or ignore the fact that the card marginalized is this threshold going back and forth, inclusivity is really, okay, it's really something that is not happening. None of the Eris are happy, because like you can thrive on chaos for a little bit, but later you are the marginalized again. It's like, the same psychologist is like, oh, I'm going to make everybody attack this person and so on, hunt this person over nothing. Just, won't let me be. Now everybody knows where this the village, kibbutz, dvir, dvira, okay, wherever they live. Okay, like you wanted to do this to my house, now, okay, you and all the people that live there that marginalized us in this way. Now, of course, they were MK Ultra, they were this, they were that, but if you rip someone of resources all that much, then they have to speak, okay? They say, fuck it, okay? I have to speak. Because now you have marginalized this person that to begin with was marginalized, but I don't know, because they were satanic ritual abuse survivors, but he was perpetuating satanic ritual abuse. So that is how this system works. And that's just going to continue on, to remember that the way we treat those we deem as crazy, those we deem as prisoners, those we deem criminals, those we deem as the disabled, okay? You have to also understand that nobody is pretending, pretending to be sick or pretending to be... People don't live workplaces, they live toxic environments. People are not lazy, they are not able to invest the energy and stay healthy where it's not correct for them to invest the energy. And you might not understand why, but if you think like that, you are a little bit of a step forward towards the Eris archetype than rest of society. Because, and sometimes there would be like, oh, hey, you feel the experience of so-and-so, that was marginalized. I was like, yeah, but you don't see how I was marginalized, and now you're putting me in another marginalization, then I would have to fight back. Now you are extremely marginalized. Okay, that is the living space, in spirit and in matter, living space, which was made to be Mein Kampf, but it doesn't have to be Mein Kampf. It just means that every person needs a living space. And when you do something against someone living space, what will happen? Okay? And you think of Palestinians? No, Palestinians, they made it to the children, to the women, to the crazy. And what was 75 open-air prison? It was good comparison to how they have been treating their own. This is pertaining also to the elite. So that's my little Eris talk. Don't keep it at this, oh, we need to respect LGBTQ rights. Of course we do. Of course we do. But that's not the story of Eris. The story of Eris is the story of the Ubermench in Eris. And it's way more complicated. It's way more complicated, and it includes understanding of chaos, not just for Uranus, but understanding of chaos. If you don't know a little bit about chaotic systems, you don't have to know the mathematics. I'm also not a great mathematician. But just to understand how chaos works, then you understand how Eris works. It's not one person who is marginalized. And when there's a threshold, the person explodes back. And think about, what do the marginalized know? Everything. They know what you do. When you do humiliation for fun, they know this. Because it's them you humiliated. When you think you can hunt someone in the astral and not get backlash because they cannot prove this, imagine what you are planning for yourself. Imagine what you are planning for yourself. Okay? So if you think you are going to teach someone a lesson, all these people are MK they were born into rape all the time. You're not going to teach them a lesson. Okay, when I expose to my therapist, it's not to teach him a lesson. It's because I have to speak in order to stay alive. That's it. He did that because for treason you get execution. And he had, I don't know why he couldn't kill himself, because he's supposed to have access. He's in charge of which children to take. He's supposed to have access to kill himself. And maybe there are more intricacies, okay? Or maybe it's a buffer in a system. I have no idea, okay? But the thing is that if it's so much so that I don't have place to live, place to stay, place to work, place to this, place to that, and I don't get along with for your standards of society, so you are marginalized in one way, but you could work, but you could this, but you could that, I cannot. And you miss that, and miss that, and miss that, and miss that. So kibbutz Dvira, psycholog klini, Itamar Yaron, this is entire kibbutz, all very likely connected to planning 7th October. Alternatively, I would have had a place to be where I am safe and free and can walk in and out, not to worry about weird landlords, weird maklers, weird environments, weird occupation, not occupation. Like, alternatively, that would be the case. But if it's not so much so to do my housing, force me to work and I cannot work, force me to live in place where everybody's not secular, I'm secular, and then I get mistreated in my home, then what do you think will happen? So what? So I could go to hospital and then what? And then what? I was mistreated at hospital as well. I was mistreated by you as well. So what do you think will happen?